love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. Please be seated. Grab those sermon sheets, grab your Bibles, turn over to Romans chapter 12. You can always do Revelation. Romans chapter 12. We're going to be there here in a few moments. And so we are looking at, well, let me push the clicker there and we'll get over to the right place. There we go. At honoring one another. And so thanks for being here. Our second service, you guys look great. We have had just a wonderful morning. I don't know about you guys. First service went well. And we, of course, had Bible class. So here we are at the second service. Just great opportunities. God's an amazing God, isn't he? Paul mentioned it already, but life group signups are in the foyer. We're not going to pass around the little blue tickets, but you can go out there and sign up. There's a map with the ones. I think we have about 11 different choices. So don't forget to look, even if you're already in a group, because lots of time changes and different changes that have occurred in that list, and so be sure and take a look. If you're in my group, we're staying the same, but lots of other changes out there in other groups, and so be sure and look that up. We're talking about honoring one another. Kind of hold that in your mind, the salute there. We'll come back to that in a little bit, but honoring one another, it's just a natural progression. If you're following along on the 40 days of prayer, this is, of course, honor one another is also today. And we began by talking about making a decision to love one another. Now we're moving right into honor one another. And so it's just a natural progression of something that holds, it's the glue that holds congregations together. It holds us together as a people, as a family. And so we want to look at honoring one another this morning. And that's where we'll go. And so as we think about this, I'd just like to bring this up. The church is not a religious vending machine. We're going to come back to honor one another here, and it's going to make sense in a moment. The church is not a religious vending machine, right? When's the last time you used a vending machine? Like it could have been yesterday or this morning or last week, or it could have been years. Like when's the last time you used a vending machine? You know, you think about it, last time I can remember distinctly, I pulled a bottle of water out of a water vending machine. We were in El Paso at the airport here a month or so ago, and they, you know, it's like Starbucks is closed, Slotsky's is closed, every place is closed, and all they have is the vending machines at the end of the corridor there. And so you could get water or Coke or whatever, and you're like, wow, when are they going to open back up? This is Texas. We're free down here. Let's open. But anyway, it's inside the airport, so they're a little more closed off. But so I got my bottle of water, and you think about this. If you're under 45, you may not even know this, but there was a movement in America for vending machines. It was like you could go, instead of through the restaurant, to the cafeteria to get, you know, like order food and stuff with the server, you actually pulled it out of vending machines. It was becoming popular, like 50s, 60s. You'd go and get your sandwich, or like spaghetti and meatballs. Then you'd go over here and get some pie. Then you'd come over, oh, a roll, I'll take one of those. It was a giant, like, vending machine. I think there's only like one left in New York or something. But the getting all your food at a vending machine, and it was supposed to take off and really be, you know, it was clean, and you know, didn't have to see people, and you didn't have anybody breathing on you. They should bring that back during COVID, right? Could have had a whole vending machine restaurant, and you'd just go in there, and everybody back in there, you'd see if they were all doing what they were supposed to do. But anyway, but you know, it's kind of like it ran its course, and you know. And so now you don't see vending machines as much. And so I wonder, though, if we're not careful, we'll see church like that, right? We'll see church like a vending machine. I put in my quarter, the kids put in their dollars, and now they expect a good Kingdom Kids, right? I expect the Kingdom Kids in return. I put in my quarters, and I expect Jimmy to have a really awesome youth group. Or I put in my quarters, and I expect, right? I expect whatever it is. I expect to really be fulfilled and have a really great worship service this morning, and I'm purchasing it. So it's like a consumer demand type thing. And it's hard for us to get out of the consumerism, remind ourselves, this is not the stage, right? Where's the stage? Where you sit. You're the performers. I'm the prompter, God's the audience, and hopefully you're doing your best to please him this morning and perform before him in your worship to him. So, and I'm the prompter, so I'm the one that should say, keep going. That's Devin and I's role. Keep going. You can do it. And hopefully the Lord is pleased with your worship this morning. And so, the old story, I brought it up last time I preached on this, the old story of, talking about the preacher at lunch and how he did and all of that. No. It's, I get home and at lunch I grade you. I'm like, the audience was, the audience. See, there I go doing it. The performers, no, I don't. I don't really do that. But, it's all about us and the Lord. And so what are we? We are a spiritual family. That's what we're all about. To make it work well, we need to honor one another. It's almost like the glue. It's not really the glue. I think of it more as kind of like the grease that makes all the machinery work. It's like the oil in the engine. It's like this thing that helps make it all work smoothly. And so when we think about loving one another, an important aspect of that is to honor one another. And so I'm going to give you, like I'm doing every week, a few practical suggestions on how to do that. In your sermon notes, there's some challenges there, and then it's up to you, isn't it, to love each other, and it's up to all of us to collectively to honor one another and display love through honor. And so this word is difficult in some ways for us as Christians, not as Christians, as Americans, as humans. Hopefully it's easy for us as Christians, but it doesn't mean so much as it meant in the first century when this text was being written. And so I wanted to put up a definition here: to recognize the worth of someone else and express it. You've got to express it. It's not just recognizing their worth, but you express it. You don't just recognize they have value, you express it. And so make sure you're expressing your honor for others. Lots of passages. John 5, 1 Corinthians 6, 1 Timothy 5:17, 1 Peter 3:7. Take your pick from honoring your spouse to honoring the emperor in those texts, and honoring each other, of course. And so this is a valuable part of what we do as Christians. And notice that if you're commanded, if we're told to honor the emperor, be it Nero or Biden or Trump or whoever might be in power right now in our particular country, that word honor is definitely unconditional. Not if they are honorable, no, then you honor them. No, it's unconditional honor. Here's the way it's changed in definition. Nowadays, you can only honor someone if they agree with you 100% and they've done exactly what you wanted them to do. Then you can honor them. And it's like you're seeing the trend. It's like they're taking honors away from people. Remember that guy? He won an award back in 1958. Let's take it away from him because he doesn't agree with us 100%. And you're like, what does that have to do with honor? What does that have to do with what you gave him the award for? And so this is the way honor works. It's a decision I make to recognize this other person has value, and I express it, and it doesn't matter anything else. It doesn't matter if I accept them or not, or agree with them, or they agree with me. I mean, if you can honor Nero while he's killing Christians that very week and say to the church, honor Nero, disregard that he killed your cousin last week. Because that's not what we're about, right? We're about honoring regardless. So the Bible assumes that we as a church will be an honorable community, and love will demonstrate itself in honor. So we recognize people's worth and we express their worth. And so think back to that salute thing. It's like, I'll talk to Fraser about that salute thing. It's like Fraser's a young second lieutenant in the Army, and he is, at first, he's like uncomfortable. You get uncomfortable. If you're in the right frame of reference, you're like uncomfortable with that sort of thing. Because Fraser knows how it works. I mean, he's a smart guy. He knows. That guy over there's been in here for 20 years, that sergeant of whatever, he's running the place around here because he knows all about how everything works. So he goes to him and asks him, right? But so it's uncomfortable. He walks in a room and they do this salute thing. But then you realize they're not saluting you, they're saluting something else, something bigger, right? The office, the officer, the unit, the army, the whole fabric and framework of everything that they are about. And it goes back to, okay, it's not necessarily like I must agree with everything that person is or about, right? This is a choice I'm making. Okay, so how do we excel in this? Well, we're not going to talk about the negatives, only the positives, right? The negative would be stop expecting only honoring people that you agree with or that you like or that you know, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go to the positive side of this, though. So 5 things. How do we excel in this? Romans 12. We better get the text in first. And so, because it's a very simple text. Honor one another, right? That's the text. But let's pick it up in verse 9. Let love be without hypocrisy, abhor what is evil, cling to what is good, be devoted to one another in brotherly love, honor one another, give preference to one another in honor. And then chapter 13, he talks about the government. Makes sense that that's where he would go next. And so regardless of who's in charge, we honor them because they've been placed there by God. And so there's value there. And so back up to the text, though. It's honor one another. It's like the oil that keeps the machine working. It's like something that we will never be able to say, wow, Longmont Church of Christ, they do too much honoring of each other around there. I don't want to go there anymore. That's never going to happen. We can't do too much of this. Like, when do you write too many thank you notes? Like, never. Like, we'll never be able to do that. Like, oh, wow, I thank them for what they've done. It's like, it's never, it's right. This is something we can do all the time. And it's so simple. It's a decision I make. It's a recognition I make of the value of this other person. And so let's look at 5 ways to do this. Number 1, you and I need to be the leader in this. And so number 1, how do we excel in this? We make a decision to honor. This is where you write it down. So write these 5 things down. Here's our challenge for all of us in this congregation, to make our congregation the most loving place on the planet. That's our goal. Our goal is to make Longmont Church of Christ the most loving community on the earth. How do we do that? We make a decision to honor. We find the value in others. All of us have been stamped with the image of God. All of us are valuable. You think about all of us that are part of this church. Every person who's a member here has been purchased by the blood of Jesus. They are a highly valuable commodity. And so you think, okay, there's a lot of value there. The Bible never says, like, honor only those who deserve it and don't honor anybody else. No, it's honor everyone. Lots of passages for this, right? I'm going to use 1 Corinthians 12, 14 through 27. Immediately in your mind you thought, oh, that's the body concept, and you're right. It's the same thing, isn't it? We honor, we don't really think about the value of some of our body parts until they disappear. You just don't even think about it, right? And then all of a sudden you don't have one anymore, like an arm, or, well, that's probably pretty obvious, but a gallbladder even, right? And then you're like, wow, okay, gallbladders actually do some things. And so there's lots of, it's like, wait till your knee goes out, right? And then it's like, wow, this thing really matters. You know, I think about that with body parts. It's like before we started doing the little communion cups that Bruce has trouble with, we of course, passed the plate. And you don't even think about it, right? But there was somebody at some point that filled up all those little hundreds of cups with juice at some point during the week before we had service. And who would remember them? Only if they didn't do it on a particular Sunday. And then we'd all be like, you know, the elders would be running back there. They'd be all fumbling around because they wouldn't know how to do it. And then they'd try to find some people that did know how to do it, because we don't expect our elders to know how to do it. We'd rather them shepherd, right? So they would find the people who know how to do it, and then they'd all be like, you know, on the fly, they'd be like, okay, we got another tray out, keep going. And we'd go, yeah, there's some value there in those people that remember to fill up the communion trays every single Sunday, whoever they might be, that do that sort of thing for us. And so it's when it goes out. And so every part's important, isn't it? We know this body concept. Remember who was not so honorable? Nero. And they're told, honor Nero. Well, how much more for us in acknowledging people who have so much value to our congregation that often we don't even think about. If you look far enough, you'll find honor in everyone, right? So we treat others with honor because we decide to, not because we feel like it. That's the biggest threat of all to Christianity, is I've got to feel like it before I can do it. And it's like, you will never do anything if you're waiting to feel like it, right? I mean, when do you feel like going to school? When do you feel like getting up and going to work? No, I do it because that's what I do, not because, oh, it's so great. You know, I feel so awesome. All kind of talk like that. We don't obey commandments, right? If only when we feel like it. No, we honor because they have value. Okay, that's enough of that one. I spent a little bit of time on it. We'll rapidly go through these other ones. Number 2, this one's an important step. It's what I call lean into LCOC, lean into Longmont Church of Christ. Don't forget to find value in others. And one of the ways you do that is you join a group. Join a small group. Join a group. Make a group. If you're into hiking, form an LCOC hikers group, and you guys can go on the trail and then be in God's nature and then have a little Devo up there, and it'll be awesome. But what are you doing when you lean into this? What do we do when we're getting involved like that, when we're joining in a small group? Like, I'm going to highlight the life groups because we're about to start it. Do you know what the single most important, most valuable commodity in our life group program is? I mean, what is the most valuable commodity? The question writer, when I write questions for the Sunday morning sermon. Of course not, right? It's obviously the host and the hostess. It's like they bring more value to life groups than anyone else. It's like they, above all, should be honored. Don't think about the facilitator, the preacher, the people who put together the booklets or whatever it might be. It's the person who had to clean their house for a couple of moments or hours and then had to clean up your mess after you left and had to do all this stuff in their home, right? That is so incredibly valuable. And so one of the groups of people that deserve lots of honor is our life group host and hostess families. Because that's behind it's hard to even see it sometimes, right? You don't see what they had to do. And so it's hard sometimes to think back and go, wow, they actually provided their home. And, when the glass got broken, oh well. Right? That's just a part of the casualties of life group. And, and when this happened, oh well. And so that's so much value. And so how will you know about the host and hostess? You'll only know when you join a life group and go to their house and go, oh yeah, they're like hosting this thing every week in and week out. And so it's like that's where you suddenly start seeing value of people. When you're like in the whatever it might be, and there's a person who leads a prayer, or you're in the, yesterday the youth, they went, who takes care of the van? Make sure it's maintained. The tires are all pressurized, and there's gas in there, and they're safe. And do you even know who that is, right? It's like, who is that? But they deserve some honor because they're like keeping that thing running. That'd be Doug Stone, by the way. But anyway, it's like all of that, those kind of jobs and activities, you'll know it when you're involved in it. And so, what a great group. All of us, right, at this church are required to do things in order for us to be successful. That's why I'm saying it's like the oil that keeps it going. So many things that happen every week, from teachers in the nursery and making sure that goes smoothly to on and on it goes, the different groups. Number 3, how about offer a hand? You want to see value? There are so many needs at LCOC. Like, there is so much. So we should ask ourselves, what can I do? That's how, you're like, wait a minute, what can I do? How does that lead to honoring someone? Oh, it will, don't worry. This is the steps of how you can excel in honor. Offer up a hand, and you'll suddenly realize there are other people who are really doing some neat and great things, who have much value to this community and to our outside world through what's going on. And so pray to God that He'll use you, and you'll see the value in others. There's so much of that. So many needs we have, right? It's like, do we have everything perfect at Longmont Church of Christ? Of course not. We need, all of us collectively need help, don't we? And so can you imagine, you want to talk about honor. Like, how do you honor our children's Bible class director who makes sure we have children's Bible classes? Go teach for him. That'll give him all the honor. He'll be so honored. He'll love it. See, that's what I'm saying. It's like when you offer a hand, you're giving him honor, because you're saying what you do is important. I value what's going on there, and so I will lend a hand. So ask what you can do. Number 4, celebrate some wins. Don't forget, we have hashtag one another LCOC. Post those pictures. You got a kiddo that's just, did the record long jump for 2-year-olds. Post that puppy, right? Post that picture. It'll be great. We want to celebrate wins. We're a family. We're a church family. Share those wins and honor those wins, right? It's a tough thing to do in our culture, to celebrate other people's wins. So being positive instead of negative in our group makes us a loving group. How busy are we? We get so busy we forget, oh, wow, I could celebrate that. But, I'm just so busy. Who does not want to hear you did a great job? And how that just seems to flow through our congregation. And so let's not be under-celebrating wins that we experience as a body. When you win, we all win because we're a family. And it's amazing how that works out. When good things happen to one of our families here, how that just like a little river, it echoes throughout the congregation, doesn't it? And we can celebrate it. And again, can you celebrate too much? Of course not. No one will ever say, boy, they honor too many people down there at Longmont Church of Christ. I'm just getting tired of being honored down there. I don't want it anymore. It's like, let's stop it, and let's just be negative all the time. No, nobody's going to do that. And so it just keeps it all working. The world is starving for this stuff, right? I think the terribleness of social media. What is social media? It is like a place where you go and shout at people all day long, right? It's where it's just hatred being shouted out at people. And so Americans are being taught to no, let's not honor people and value people. Let's just shout at people. And if they don't agree with us, we can't honor them. And you think, no, it's like there's so many ways we can be different from our world. And so instead of the negativeness, the positiveness of that. Finally, the last one, and we're finished here. But I've decided to put it in this lesson. You can learn how to say thank you to show gratitude. You can do that in every one of the one another's, right? But I've decided to put it in the honor one another lesson because it's just such a huge thing to find value in someone else and express it through a simple thank you. Tell others thank you. It's so big, and it's so much into making things work. Let's see. Thank you. This week, Sprouts. I was at Sprouts going through the checkout line, and she, of course, is like paper or plastic. Because you can't bring your own bags because I haven't autoclaved them yet or whatever, and so paper or plastic. So I have to bag it. I mean, I don't have to bag it. She gets the bags out. She's ready to start bagging. I'm like, no. And so I get the bags because when you get to bag your own at Sprouts, you get to fit them into the bags the way you want, and everything's perfect. And I do a little game and try to get them really full. And then she's like, be careful there. Those things are going to be heavy. And I'm like, it's all good. I'm going to carry them from the bottom, all that. But I want to see if I can get them all in there right. How much can I get in one bag? So it's very fun. And she's doing her thing, and I'm doing my thing, and Shill's watching, and we're doing our thing. And then we get toward the end there, and she just looks at me, and she's like, thank you so much for bagging the groceries. And I'm like, well, it's my groceries, right? Number one, but okay. I mean, it's great. It's like, this is perfect. I give her money for this produce. She says thank you, and it's a good win-win relationship there. See, it's like oil. It's like grease. It's like making everything work right. But you can walk up there and go, I'm not bagging them. Who's not bagging my groceries around here? And then you storm off, and now they're having a bad day. You're having a bad day. Everybody's having a bad day. See, it fell apart. The relationship fell apart. Where her just looking over at me and going, thank you so much for bagging the groceries. And I'm like, well, you're welcome. Felt good. And I got it in two big old, no, anyway. And then I went out the door, they busted, no. But I got it all the way to the car. But it's like, it's just her doing that. And I can still remember her looking at me and doing that because it's important. It's like it makes that relationship work well. And it's so true in a church. This is like making it work. So don't worry. You felt like you've already given a Bible class, your kid's Bible class teacher a thank you. Give them another one. They won't mind. They may say they'll be like, oh, but don't worry, right? It's so important. I'll brag on one other group. Yesterday at Mac's funeral, the Finleys are sitting across the table from us, and we're sitting here. We had a kind of a small luncheon for family. A few of the elders, the people that have been involved in the celebration, were up eating, and of course, it's just provided for the family primarily, and everybody's left, and so Finleys are there, and I'm there, and of course, there's some of the close friends of the family and elders, and we're eating, and then you get to the end of the meal, and I look to my left, and there's this table full of desserts. There's like 147 desserts. There's only like 12 family members, but they've made 6 different desserts, and they're all homemade. And there's 2 on each plate. Who doesn't like that? and I'm just looking and going, that is a small, it's like you wouldn't even recognize it. But what were those ladies saying to Mac's family? We honor and appreciate this man. Something as simple as just making a bunch of desserts and putting them on a table. They could have just put store-bought cookies. But there's all these different desserts. And you're like, wow, there is honor there. Something so simple. But see, that just makes everything flow. It just makes it all work, right? Just something as simple as some desserts on a table. 6 different kinds. Take your pick, right? And the family took a bunch of it home, right? Who doesn't want to take home a bunch of desserts? And so it's just a very simple way of saying thank you and honoring those people, honoring Mac primarily, of course, in that endeavor. And so think of ways you can do this. Think of ways you can honor others. And that's our lesson this morning. Last group, hot dogs, we're out of time. Last, folks, I just want to remember publicly up here it was Pearl Harbor. 1941. Were you around? Probably not most of you, just a few of you, but you were little. And it was Pearl Harbor occurred. They announced it on the radio. Roosevelt, of course, made his speech, declared war. Germany jumped in. We're at war with Japan and Germany and Italy too, but nobody thinks about them. And we're at war with Germany and Japan, and they weren't going, and we're on to victory. We'll be crushing everybody here in a few short years. No, they weren't like that at all. They were thinking, are we going to survive this? Will we make it? Our army is like nobody. I mean, we didn't hardly have an army at the beginning of World War II. It's like these giant nations are out to kill everybody. They bombed our own territory. What are we doing? And it was right at that junction that a group of 4 families said, we should get a church going in Longmont, Colorado. And they got together one Sunday right there in early 42 and said, let's be a church. They rented Roosevelt Park, the senior place there, and started up a congregation. And you think, wow, we stand on their shoulders, so to speak, right? We stand on what they did long ago. So we're thankful for that, aren't we? It's just easy to think, wow, honor, that was a courageous and bold, and also it was very important at that moment and historically, and just Longmont was a little bitty place of a few thousand people, and World War II had just broken out, and all the uncertainty of life. And what does that uncertainty do? You react by going to God. And so they started worshiping the God together in a little congregation. And so you think about, okay, long time later, right? Here we are getting ready to start up building a big building. I guarantee you in January of 1942, when they started up, they weren't thinking, now don't forget, in exactly 80 years, they're going to be spending over $3 million on a building. They didn't think like that. They were just thinking, how do we worship the Lord together and be a spiritual family and honor God and do what's right in Longmont? And so we should be grateful for people like that, right? That do that and say thank you. And of course, if they were still around, we couldn't we? We would do that. And so, but we can honor them just through carrying on what they've done, right? That's the best honor of all. We carry on the work. and we keep the work going at Longmont Church of Christ. And so what do you do with honor? Look around this week. That's your challenge. Find somebody to honor. Make a list. Be sure and honor them. Be sure and spot somebody in your in the church here, and in your orb, in your group within the church here, and find ways to honor them. And it will. It's what keeps it going. It's the oil that makes everything run smoothly in this Love One Another project that we're involved in. And so thanks for being here. This is the best place you could possibly be this morning. I guarantee it. There's no better place. And so what a great decision you made to worship the Lord. And I think he really likes it too. And so let's find ways of honoring. Next week we'll keep going on this one another journey. But I'm so happy and thankful, and just each and every day is a great honor to be a part of Longmont Church of Christ. What a great opportunity is for all of us to be involved collectively in what we're doing. And so you guys have done well. You were quiet, respectful. So you got an A for your participation this morning. Let's sing to God one more time. Go ahead and stand.
Humble yourself in the